Hey everyone, thanks for coming by. This is Petri again, and we're going to be starting a beautiful flower painting here. This is going to be what the finished painting will look like right here. So I just wanted to maybe zoom in a little bit in the beginning. You can maybe, if you want, pause the video at some point if you want to do a screen capture, or somehow I'll leave this picture online on the screen too, on the video shot when we're going to do this, so that we're going to use this for our reference. This is a previous painting I did probably a couple years ago. So this one really, I feel turned out really good. Lots of different colors. It's a sunflower with some red flowers on the top section of this floral arrangement, and it's in a beautiful little clear glass jar. Let's try this. Let's go for it. So we're going to zoom back out here like so. And I'll just slide this over here. So we'll leave this up here on camera for the duration. Maybe I'll tape that down. So I just use a little bit of artist tape here. And I'll just put a little bit of artist tape on this just so it doesn't move around. And that should be fine. And we can also, this really helps a lot. I mention this a lot. You probably hear me say this quite frequently, that it's good to maybe sometimes tape off your compositions when you're working on your compositions. So I suggest this. The reason why is when you lift off the tape, once you're done doing a painting like this, you'll have a beautiful border around, a nice crisp, clean, almost like a mat around your painting. So that really does help a lot. So we'll do that. We'll make a border. So I'll just take I'm using some Scotch drafting tape. I think it's number 230, Scotch number 230 drafting tape. A really good tape. Scotch makes great tape, of course. They make all this office supply tapes, your Scotch tapes, double stick tapes, things like that. So you can't go wrong with that. I sometimes get mine at the dollar store, and I don't worry about it. But for my videos, I like to use the best quality items I can. This way, nothing happens that's going to make my video have problems. So, like, I'll always use my best paper that I have in my studio for my videos here that I create for you. But maybe if I'm just practicing on my own, I might use some printer paper for practicing brush strokes, or I might use like student grade paper for like just practicing figures or still life paintings, or if I'm doing some compositions to warm up before I do a painting, stuff like that. But when I do my videos, I try to always use the best I can, the best quality materials, art supplies I can. So let's... Okay, so that's the idea of getting just a nice crisp border here around your painting when you first start, so that once you're done and you lift off the tape, you'll have that beautiful, clean, crisp white border around your painting, and then you'll be more likely to pin this up on your wall by your desk or in your kitchen on your refrigerator, something like that, because it'll look more like a finished painting. And look really pleasant. If you're just painting on paper and you don't have any border, it looks a little bit rough. If you do a ton of painting, then sometimes you wouldn't worry too much about doing a lot of the taping. But if you're just going to do a couple paintings here and there, good to use the tape for a border. So this way, when you're done with it and you say, hey, that really looks good, you peel off the tape, it even looks better, and then you can put that up on your wall. In the kitchen, wherever you like to work, your art studio, your little spot you have. And I always meant to do a video on kind of setting aside a little spot for yourself that you just kind of like in your place where you live, where it's your own little area that you kind of designate for your artwork. And it might be a lot of different places for everybody, all different places for everybody. I know that's the case, but I'll eventually do a video on that if people want to are interested in that idea, I can definitely do a YouTube video tutorial on just different ideas. I've gone through a lot of different ideas in my own art career of setting up a studio in my house and so forth. So I have a lot of good ideas, and I'm sure you guys can put some great ideas too in the comments section. If I make a video like that, you can put in your ideas too of what you like to do in your studios, in your place, how you like to organize things like that. Okay, so let's get started here. We're just going to start off with a very light preliminary sketch like we always do, just to kind of get the idea of where all of this is going to sit in this rectangle right here that we've created with our tape. So right away I notice the top of the vase is about 1/3 of the way up, and you can always probably tell that I always like to use the thirds most times. So if you have thirds approximately like that, 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3 makes up the whole vertical of our rectangle. And then maybe we'll do a border around this too, just like this. Okay, so the first third here, let's get our top of our jar. And so I'm just going to lightly sketch in that jar, like so. Just so I have a preliminary sketch, and we're going to draw a contour drawing over the top of this. So we're going to go over this again with a darker line. You don't have to, though. You can do a preliminary sketch like this and just leave it like this and then paint and start painting right away. But I like to do a preliminary sketch first, then a contour drawing over top with a darker pencil line, and then I start my painting. But you're the artist. You'll figure out what you want to do. And then, of course, we're going to have the main flower here is going to be our beautiful sunflower here. So I'll put the center of the flower here. And again, I'm just trying to do some preliminary sketching, the petals of the sunflower here. Okay, so that is our sunflower preliminary sketch, right? Then we're going to have over here, there's that beautiful red flower petals here, that shape there. And then up here, we have another yellow type flower there, and then another red over here, another red shape there, like so. And then over here, we have another beautiful red flower there. It's like so. I'm just doing a preliminary sketch. Another red flower over here. And then more over here. We have another one over here. And then we have another flower shape over here, like so. That looks like the side of another sunflower. And then we have a couple green leaf forms. So, and if I draw in something extra, don't be alarmed. Sometimes I change my sketch a little bit from this, perhaps a little bit, you know. It's okay. You can change from, if you have a painting you're working from, like a reference photo, you're the artist. You can always adjust your game plan according to what you like to see. So you might say, oh, wow, I like what Chris did here, but I want to change it a little bit. I want to add another color flower in here. It seems maybe I'd like to add a purple flower in here maybe somewhere in this. That's fine. You create things, you do little offshoots from what I'm doing so that you might be a little more happier when you're painting your composition here. So you don't always have to stick to exactly what I'm doing, and that goes with anything. Any kind of reference material you're using, you can always change it a little bit. If you're even out in a plein air situation where you're out sitting in a park and you're on a park bench and you're painting a scene, you can change the scene around a little bit to make it easier for you. Or if you're in a city type situation, you're looking out a cafe window at a street scene and you want to change something around. Maybe you don't want to add as many people or as many cars, or you might want to add more people in, or maybe make less people in your painting, or more cars or less cars. You know what I mean? You can add and subtract. Always think of it that way. You can always add and subtract to your compositions and your paintings to suit your own needs and to suit what you like. You might like a ton of figures in your painting, like lots of figures, or you might like just a few figures here and there if you're doing like a street scene. Just an idea for you. Same thing with these flowers. You might want to make a few more flowers and a couple different color flowers. You might want to add a little more color to this. Maybe you might think this is a little bit not as much colors as you would like. So you add more or delete whatever you like when you're doing your work. But I think this is good right now. We have a preliminary sketch. I will do a table in the background here, so just to give us a little more. So I'll put a little table, and I don't like that table in the background there. Right away, I'm looking at this and saying to myself, I don't want a table on the background of this painting, because I'm zoomed in, like in a sense, if we're thinking of, like if you think of your paintings as like a camera shot, like if you're taking a picture with your phone, if you think of it like that, you'd say, oh, I'm really zoomed into this flowers here in this vase. Highly doubtful I'm going to see a table in the background here because I'm so zoomed in. It'll look better if I just leave that table top out of the picture and just leave it the vase and the flowers. And there's a couple stems here we'll have. Like this. Maybe another couple of leaf forms, green leaf forms. And there's a couple green leaf forms here too. I'll kind of shade in the green ones, the green leaf forms. This way I kind of know when I'm going to paint them that those are the green leaf forms. All right. So we have done our preliminary sketch. I'm going to go over this with a darker contour drawing. Maybe you'll be able to see a little better how I'm drawing this. But the main thing is, if you don't like pencil lines too much in your paintings showing through, then all you have to do is leave this a preliminary sketch like this. It's probably hard to see right now on camera. I don't know how to fix that. I think it's just I have to use bright lights so you can see all the things I'm doing here. So if I turn down the lights a little bit like that, you can see that preliminary sketch a little better, but then the rest of this kind of looks dark and doesn't look so good. So I'm going to turn the lights brighter. So that's how I usually record, with really bright lighting. So I'll go over this with a darker pencil sketch in just a second, and then we'll begin our painting, okay? But I just wanted you to see that I do that preliminary sketch first. And again, if you don't really like a lot of pencil lines in your paintings, well then that's okay. You just get your light preliminary sketch in like this and leave it that way, and you just start painting right away. So you'll skip the next contour drawing step if you really don't like a lot of pencil lines in your painting. If you like pencil lines showing through in your painting, then you'll do the darker contour drawing like we're going to do in just a second. And I always thank you for coming by, and I always mention too, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. The button's right down there on the right-hand side, subscribe. You click on, and basically you'll be working with us every week. We're doing videos here on my channel week after week, month after month, and year after year. Everything is watercolor. Some weeks we're doing flowers, other weeks we're doing boats and seascapes, and other times we're going to do beautiful architectural drawings of buildings and paintings of buildings and houses. Sometimes we're going to do figure painting. We do all kinds of different subject matter so that everyone's happy. You know, you might not like certain paintings. You might not like even flower paintings, but I say if you don't like a flower painting so much, it's still good to watch, because you'll see how we're painting here. You'll see the techniques we're using as we paint, and that will help you to understand better watercolor and how to actually work with the medium of watercolor. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time to learn watercolor. But if you're just working a little bit every day, maybe on the weekends you're painting, maybe during the week you're doing your drawing 15 or 10 minutes a day, 10, 15 minutes a day of drawing, and then on the weekends you're doing your paintings, you'll be fine. After a couple of years, you really have the swing of it. It's not going to be like you're doing, these phenomenally great paintings after just 1 or 2 years, unless you're really putting in a lot of time. You might be able to do that. If you're putting in a lot of hours, you can really make a lot of progress, but most people are busy. I realize most of you are busy and you have a lot of things going on and you've got a lot of responsibilities and other things. But even still, even if you're just doing a little bit of work every week here with us on this channel, you're going to make a lot of progress with your watercolor painting and you'll have a lot of fun. And it's just a great way to escape the everyday worries and concerns and stresses and things. You just work 10 or 15 minutes or half an hour every couple days or so, or on the weekends, and you'll forget about all the other stresses and you'll have a fun time. So let's come back. We'll do our contour drawing, and then after that, we'll start our painting. Okay, so we'll be right back. All right, here we go. We're going to start our contour drawing now. So I'm just going to begin where we started with our regular preliminary sketch. So I'm just going to go through the painting. Now, with the contour drawing, you're basically recalling that a contour drawing is basically you're starting in one place, usually in a central location of your subject matter, and then you're sort of working around and through your drawing, keeping your pencil on the paper at all times, and you're basically pretending you're taking a trip through your drawing. So I'm sort of getting the lines here. This is straight here, like so, and these flare out like this. And then I'm doing some stems here. Glass jar, so things are a little bit obscured. You're not going to see everything perfectly. So I'm making some stems in there. And then here I'm going to go right in and start doing my, and you're noticing, if you can, you're noticing that I'm going with a good rhythm here. I'm using a good rhythm as I go, and I'm staying close to the center of where I started. So I wouldn't start drawing all the way up out here or all the way up out there. I'm sort of staying close to where I began so that I can keep judging the size of everything in close proximity to where I'm working. So that's really the key with contour drawing, is you don't want to start going too far out. You want to stay close to where you begin your drawing, and then you can judge better all the scale and size of everything as you're drawing it, so you don't get too far out of shape, making things exaggerated, too large, too small. And now that I've got the main flower here in the center completed, the sunflower, then I can start going out here and working on those red flowers. And there's another green leaf form there, and there's a stem there. So we're doing some, and this is the other. And I might just change my game plan around a little bit as I'm going here. But that's the main, and just, you're kind of getting a rhythm going here. You're getting a fun rhythm going, flowing through your drawings when you're contour, and it doesn't have to be flowers. It could be anything you're drawing, any subject matter. Maybe with flowers you can go a little faster, but that's it. I can get a drawing like this done very quickly when we're contour drawing. You can see how you can do this very quickly, and I'm sure you are doing it kind of quickly. You've already got your preliminary sketch underneath it done first. Then we're doing our contour drawing over the top of it, so you really actually already have your blueprint underneath it completed first with that preliminary sketch we did. And then when you're doing your contour drawing like we just did just now, that's basically just getting in your darker, more definite pencil lines. And again, if you do like darker pencil lines showing in your painting, then this is perfect for you. You really will enjoy that. And then what I like to do is maybe sometimes I used to see Charles Reed always do this. He would do a dark, really dark contour drawing, pencil line, and then he would just lift up a couple spots here and there, perhaps with his eraser, just to soften up the look a little bit so that it's not all really strong pencil lines, but you know, you can lift a few pencil lines here and there. So you can just kind of take a couple spots and lift up a little bit. Oh, a few pencil lines. And that just kind of makes it look a little bit softer. Just a few spots though, not everywhere. Okay. So that's our contour drawing. Let's start our painting in just a second. I'm going to take a quick break. I usually take breaks in between each part of this. This is a maybe like an 8x9 or an 8x8 rectangle. So this is safe to say that I'm going to usually take a break in between each phase. So when I do my first preliminary drawing, that's maybe 15 minutes. I take a break. Then I do my contour drawing another 15 minutes, take a break. And then now we'll do the painting portion, and that'll be maybe like two 15-minute phases where we'll do the painting in maybe like two 15-minute time frames. Maybe we'll do our darkest darks first and get a lot of good darks in there, and then we'll start to do our other lighter lights and then our background. Okay, so let's take another break, and we'll come right back, and we'll start painting. All right, let's get in and start our painting. I think the first thing I'm going to do is probably I'll use a number 8 Da Vinci Maestro travel brush. Pretty good size for this painting, a size round brush. I'll pour in some fresh clean water into my water container. And this is going to be an alla prima painting. Basically, we're just going to start painting and work through the whole painting. And we're not really doing any kind of glazings or anything like that, where we're wetting the whole paper and then using a blow dryer, things like that. We're just basically going to paint, start in one place in the center of the painting and work our way around the painting until it's complete. So the first thing I would like to do is, I think this will be helpful for everybody if you can get some good, beautiful, rich, soft, moist paint out there on the palette. I hope you can see that. That's thick paint straight out of the tube, and I'm just putting it into the palette like that, so that you can actually start mixing your paints. A little bit of raw sienna and yellow ochre over here. So you have cadmium lemon yellow here, or cadmium yellow lemon, is what it's called. I think actually that's the name for it in the Holbein paint. So it's cadmium yellow lemon. That's the really lighter, cooler yellow. Then the warmer yellow over here, cadmium yellow. Then some raw sienna and yellow ochre here. So we have some good yellows and golden colors like that. Then we have a little bit of the burnt umber here. We're going to use that for the center of our flower. So let's mix up our colors and just get them out here in our palette so that we can relax and we know we have all our colors out in the palette before we start. Kind of like oil painters. Oil painters, if you ever notice, when they use their palettes, they usually have those palettes where they hold in their arm. Big palettes, big, palettes with a little thumb hole in there, big wooden palette or glass or whatever they use. And they usually put all their paints, they squeeze all their tube paints out all on their palette to start with. And then they start mixing things. And then when they're ready to go in and start painting, they start mixing, continue mixing, but they really get all their paint out. Let's do the same thing. Let's kind of be smart, work like oil painters. So we get our colors out on the palette first. Now, I rinse my brush, and we'll start mixing some greens, and that'll be sap green. Let's mix our greens down here. Sap green, nice, rich, thick paint. You can't paint a painting like this using watery, too much watery. Like, what you wouldn't want to do is mix paint that looks like this. Can you see that? How watery that looks? So you wouldn't want to mix anything that looks like this, like too much water like that. See how that's all like watery? You wouldn't want to, we don't want that actually. What I like to do is keep your paint rich and thick and moist, and you can always go in and dip your brush right into your soft moist paint. But I'll take that soft moist paint and just put it out on the palette too. But we want to avoid, with 100% assurity, we do not want to have this type of look where there's all kinds of watery looking wash like that. That won't work for this painting. So right away you kind of know, okay, we're not going to be mixing anything that looks like that watery kind of look where it's just a little bit of tiny bit of paint and tons of water. We can't have that for this painting. We have to make sure we stick with the really rich colors that we have. We're digging in and just using that soft paint, moist paint. We're getting those dark, beautiful, rich colors out there. Can you see how good that looks? So now we're getting some of those blues and greens out here. I'm going to use some cerulean blue here, French ultramarine blue up here, sap green over here. So now you have a nice mixture of soft, moist paint right there on the palette. And a little bit of purple, maybe some ultramarine violet. We'll use that for over here. So I'm already mixing all the paints that I need. And then you can also start making some lighter greens over here like this with some little bit of yellow and the green mixed. And I think we have it. So let's start out right away. And let's just get that center of this flower in. We're going to move rapidly here. We want to get into a rhythm. Let's get into a rhythm here. We could add a little color mix in there too. You don't have to stick with just the brown. You can add a little gold, a little blue. Make it look interesting. Like that. And then let's get right in and start doing our some petals here. And I move my brush around here and there. And it's good to sort of mix your colors around. And I think you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just really utilizing all of these golds and yellows for my petals, for my sunflower. And I think that's the key here, is if we can just make it exciting by mixing lots of variations of those golds and yellows, it's really going to look good. And again, I'm doing a good rhythm here. I'm using my brush, which is a good size brush. This brush actually is the size of the actual leaf of, or the leaf form of the sunflower. Can you kind of see how that's the same size? So that's a good size brush for this painting to do this flower right here, right now, as we're doing this. And I'll just also too do a little splash or two to soften and loosen up a little bit, you know. If you feel a little bit like you're getting too tight with your painting and you're getting a little bit stressed, you splash a couple things on there, and next thing you know, you're just back in business working on your painting and not worrying about it too much. Like that. Okay. Okay, that looks good. We're already getting some really good progress here. We have our flower done here, our sunflower. And then we're going to start working in our greens and blues here. And I usually like to turn the brush the other way just to get that leaf form. And then there's some darker shadows, so you can work in those shadowy, darker blue there. And then I like to just work this right on down. It sort of ties everything together. If you can just do some quick, these are just like stems, like that. No need to get too fancy with this. And then some mystery shadows and reflections on the vase. There's some and then we can do some more blue here. That might be the blue portion of the vase. And I think that looks good. And I'll add a little bit of gold in here, just so we have all the different colors mixing together. A little bit of purple here, maybe just a couple splashes. Again, we're doing a composition here, having fun. We're not trying to create a painting that's going into a museum or anything like that. Just having fun, trying to learn the watercolor medium. It takes a lot of practice, so you got to do a lot of paintings. So your paintings are really, you're just thinking of it really as, well, your paintings are like practice compositions, and then the more you're just continually doing compositions and practicing, then eventually, you know, after a couple of years, they're going to start to, like, you know, not that you can't do a really nice painting when you first start, you can do that. That I'm sure you're going to have your good successes right in the beginning. You're going to have a couple really beautiful paintings. So you just enjoy your victories and your good paintings that turn out fantastic in the beginning. But, you know, a lot of times when you're painting in watercolor in the beginning, it's, you know, it's like just a process. You have to just keep working at it and keep working at it and saying, what can I do better the next painting, or what am I noticing I'm doing that looks good, and I got to keep working on that to keep myself going in that same direction. And what's not working, and what do I want to avoid? So a lot of times that's another thing too. You can look at your watercolors and say, well, what, you know, and we'll do the red flowers next here, and I think I'll add some of that red too here. So we're always mixing our colors everywhere on our painting. So I'm going to try to get some of that red color here and there. We think to ourselves, what can we notice about our paintings and when we're working that's working and what's not working. So if you know something's not working good, you just know you got to avoid that. Like if you say, oh, wow, if I add too much water to my painting, it doesn't look good. It gets really doesn't look good at all if I add too much water to my paints, and then you know, like you don't want to do too much, add too much water. So then I would say, oh, well, we're going to add more paint. So I'm going to use more soft, moist paint from the palette in my painting, because I'm noticing if I add too much water, like we were showing before. So if we're doing something like this with our red, and we're trying to mix something like that, and we put it on the paper, it doesn't look good. I mean, it could look good for certain portions of the flower, a lighter section of the flower, but you also have to have that really straight paint like that you go in and just get straight paint right out of the palette, that soft paint. And that's going to really make things look exciting and vibrant. So that's what we're doing there. We're getting in, and then you can add that red, splashing a little red here and there. And then here, more straight tube paint like that. And then some green, sap green, straight sap green. We're going to start getting some leaf forms here. So there's some leaf forms here like that. And again, I'm working with a good rhythm. I'm just following my drawing, my pencil drawing here. That's all I'm doing is I'm just following my pencil drawing and saying, oh yeah, I remember I was over here. I did some pencil drawing of some leaf forms over here and there. And then there's a couple of stems, and there's another. Maybe this one will make a little bit more lighter, like this. Like that. Perhaps you want to leave out a flower that you might have drawn in before earlier, and then you say, oh, I think it looks a little better. I think it'll look better if I do dry off a little bit of the paint off my brush on a tissue and go in and get the, and this is another yellow leaf, flower petals there. So that's a little bit, and then maybe some of that over here too. And if you have a problem where some of your paint starts to infiltrate, no problem. Just lift up a little bit with your tissue. Just blot a little bit. See how we did that? You just take your tissue and blot a little bit. If you start to see paint leaking into other areas that you don't want it to go into, if you just blot that up a little bit, it actually looks fine. Kind of softens things up too. It actually works nicely to soften the look of the painting. But I think we're actually pretty good right now. I think we actually have everything looking fantastic. I'm just going to put a little of that darker red there and here. Like that. Okay, I think that is pretty good. I'm going to empty my water just one time and add a little more fresh water so I can maybe get a little bit of a wash of some purple over here, like that. Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue up here. A little bit of cerulean blue. And I can soften that up over there, that red there, a little bit. And a little more cerulean blue over here. Sometimes that little bit of wash and splash looks good. We can make a little border around our painting. Like that. Maybe blot it a little bit. There we go. Okay, and I'll go in and get a little more darker brown, burnt umber, just to get a little more definition in there, and like that. And I'll soften a little bit of those white spots. You know, you can have a little bit of white paper here and there. I think this looks really good. So we have a finished painting. Okay, so as we talked about in the very beginning of the video, we're just going to lift up the tape, the drafting tape, Scotch brand drafting tape, which is really fantastic tape. And that's it. Now you have a nice clean border around your painting. So it looks much better if you're going to put it on your refrigerator or on your wall. Maybe you're going to put it in a scrapbook or something. You're the artist. You're going to save your work and maybe make a few notes next to it or something, or on the back of it saying, what did I learn on this one? And, you know, you can like here I can put a little bit of damp water right here, and then lift a little bit because I noticed it got a little bit, some of the other colors, the reds and things mixed and mingled with that. And that looks good. And this over here too. There we go. So you just do a little lifting with a tissue if you have to lift up some paint that might have, but you want some soft edges to blend here and there. You don't want everything to look like cut out and pasted. So I think we have a happy medium here. We have some interesting, exciting colors, vibrant, beautiful reds and yellows and golds and blues. We have good variation of colors, and we've got, you know, that really rich, thick, moist paint that we're using straight from our palette right into our painting. We're trying to avoid that look of mixing too much water like this. So if you see your palette has paint looking like that, mixes like that, that's really bad. We want to have things looking like this. So when you're painting this painting, you definitely got, like, for let's say the blues and the greens, you've got to have your rich color like that. Your French ultramarine blue, some sap green, some cerulean blue. See how rich and moist that paint is on the palette? You have to have that when you're working this type of painting that we're doing here. That you'll have all the success in the world if you're just keeping that focus of making sure your paints stay rich and moist like this on your palette. And a big help too is when you're rinsing your brush off, you can always have a sponge next to your water pail and then dry, you know, if you have your water pail here, you can always have a sponge next to your water pail or your water container, and always make it a habit. Rinse your brush off and then tap it on your sponge first to take off some of that water. Or you can hold a tissue, and then when you rinse off your brush, before you do anything, you're tapping off a little water off your brush. So you rinse your brush, take a little water off, either on a sponge or a paper towel or a tissue. Then you can go into your palette and start getting fresh squeezed to paint like this. The problem would be is if you didn't take some of that water off your brush on either a sponge or your tissue, you'll tend to flood your palette with too much water in your paint wells as well as your palette. So that's a good kind of indication of keeping a good control of your water in your brush, the actual brush hairs. You want to rinse brush, check off water, take water off, and then go in and, unless you're doing a very light sky wash, well then yeah, you can mix, you know, you can mix a sky wash like this. That's okay. But to get the yellows and reds and greens of this painting, you have to realize that to get that, you definitely have to use the fresh, moist paint right from your palette and keep your brush dry by, again, checking off water. When you're rinsing your brush, always check your water off on a paper towel, sponge, tissue, whatever it is. If you have if you wear an apron, you touch your brush to your apron first, then you go in and get your paints and you can go in and do your work on your painting. I hope this was helpful. I hope you had a great time doing this. This is a really fun painting, and I always mention too, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe on the right-hand side below. This way you can follow along every week as we work. Enjoy the process. Keep practicing. If you miss a week or two every once in a while, no big deal. But if you're working with us every week on the weekends or whenever you have a chance to do your painting and drawing, you'll be fine. You'll learn watercolor. You'll have a great time with it, and you'll just keep getting better and better. So we'll see you on the next video. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for all the great comments in the comment section, everybody. Really appreciate that. And we'll see you on the next video, okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.